Hi everyone and welcome! My name is Demi and today I'm going to show you how to make this silky, smooth pumpkin pie. I've spent most of my life without ever eating pumpkin pie, but when I finally did, I was immediately sold and I have spent years trying to perfect this recipe and I really hope that you like it as much as I do. As always, I will be using grams, but not to worry, the quantities will pop up in the screen in both cups and in grams, and you can always look at the description box down below where I'll make sure to give you the quantities in cups and in grams as well. So first things first, we are going to make our pie crust. One disclaimer, you need to make this in advance, just because the dough needs to chill for about half an hour to preferably an hour. So if you're going to make this recipe, either make sure you have an extra hour for the dough to chill or make the dough the night before or whenever you have time. I actually ended up making my dough last night, so I'm going to show you how to make this, but I'm going to swap it out with the dough I already made. So this is just a basic pie crust recipe with a little twist, but we're going to start with 150 grams of flour, and to that we are going to add sugar. And over here I have about 35 grams of sugar, which is about 3 tablespoons. So I'm gonna pop that in like that. Next we are going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and for the twist that I just mentioned, we are going to add half a teaspoon of pumpkin spice. I've got them both in here and I'm gonna toss them like that. So when you've got the salt and pumpkin spice in there, we're just gonna give it a quick stir, like so. All right, so after we've mixed these ingredients together, we are going to add our butter. So over here I have 115 grams of cubed, unsalted, very cold butter. I actually put this butter in the fridge and then I actually kept it in the freezer for about half an hour before making this pie crust. The reason you want the butter to be so cold is that you want a really flaky crust, and you can only achieve that by using very cold butter. So make sure your butter is really cold, and we are going to add that to our bowl. All right. So now we're going to cut our butter into the mixture, and I'm going to use I think it's called a butter cutter. If there's a better word, then I'm sorry, I don't know, but anyway, I'm going to use this tool. And I'm just going to cut the butter into that. If you don't have this, just use 2 knives. Alternatively, you can use your hands, that is okay. It's just that your hands are warm, so you risk warming up the butter and losing the flakiness of the crust. But typically, if you work fast, that should not be the biggest deal. So use this, use knives, use your hands. Just make sure you work the butter into this. I'm just going to cut it in like so. And you want to keep doing this until the butter is basically pea-sized and it's a nice crumbly mixture. All right, so right now our mixture looks very crumbly. I will show it to you. It looks something like this. And that's exactly what we're going for, so that's perfect. Now we're going to add our last ingredient for the crust, which is ice water. I just used some tap water and I added some ice cubes to that and then put that in the freezer for about 5 to 10 minutes. You can put some tap water in the freezer, but just make sure it's really cold. I can still see a little bit of ice cubes in here, and that's perfect, that's what we want. So I'm going to take 3 or 4 tablespoons. So I'm going to start with 3. And now I am going to use my hands to knead this together. And if I find that the dough is still a bit crumbly, I'll add some more, but don't start with 4, just start with 3 and see how your dough is behaving at that point. So this is 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, and 3 tablespoons. All right, going to knead this right now. Okay. So my dough is already pretty sticky at this point, so I don't need to add more water, but if you want to add more water because your dough is pretty crumbly still, you can. Just try to do it in little steps, maybe start with half a tablespoon, and as I said, preferably not more than 4 tablespoons. 4 should really be enough. So this is our dough. It's really good. It sticks together. It's not crumbly. It's also not too sticky. So as I said, the dough really needs to chill now for at least half an hour, preferably an hour, or if you want to, overnight. So wrap it in some saran wrap and then put it in the fridge. I've already made another dough that I'm going to use now, so I'm going to swap them. But yeah, make sure to chill it, and then after that we'll go to the next step. Okay, so as I said, I already made a dough last night, which I've got over here. This dough has been chilling for half a day, so it's perfect right now, and we are going to use this to make our pie. So before we start the fun part of rolling this out, you want to preheat your oven to 220 degrees Celsius or 425 degrees Fahrenheit. First, I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my sheet over here. And I'm also going to put some on my rolling pin just to prevent the dough from sticking to it. All right. Then we take our dough, place it on our sheet. I like to make sure that both sides have some extra flour on it as well. And then we're going to start rolling it out. And you're just going to keep the dough moving. So right now I'm doing it like this, and then I'm going to flip it just so you keep catching the flour on the dough and it doesn't start sticking to your sheet or table or whatever you're using. Alright, this is the size that I've got. It's perfect for my pie dish, so I'm going to put this in my pie dish. If you want, you can roll it on your rolling pin and put it in. I'm just going to use my hands because why not? Alright, also for the record, before we go any further, make sure to grease your tin. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that before. So we've got this nice and high like so. Alright. If there's parts that are sticking out, that's absolutely no problem because we want it to be a little bit higher anyway, and we're going to just fold it under where necessary, like so. Okay, perfect. Now our dough is in our pie dish and we are going to dock it, which means we're going to use a fork and just stab our dough for a few times just to make sure it has some holes in it. Also doing the sides a little bit. So now we're going to blind bake our crust for about 15 minutes, which means that we're going to just bake the crust without the pumpkin pie filling just yet. But we are going to put something in there to make sure that the dough does not explode or get too thick. So what you're going to do first is you're going to grab some parchment paper. I have some parchment paper over here, and you're just going to crumple it. Now the reason we just did that is that it makes it a lot easier to place it into our pie dish right now. So you're going to place it into your dish, make sure it covers the bottom and the sides. So now that we've done that, we are going to add our filling that we're going to use to blind bake with, and I'm using dried split peas. You can use dried beans, you can use any kind of dried pea or bean would work perfectly. And I'm just going to put this in here. So this is also why you wanted the parchment paper to cover the sides, because you don't want the split peas or beans or whatever you're using to fall into the pie crust, obviously. So just spread that out a little bit, like so. All right, awesome. I'm going to cut the excess parchment paper. So we are just going to bake this in the oven for about 15 minutes, and meanwhile we are going to be making our pumpkin pie filling. So see you in a second. Okay, so our pie crust has baked for about 15 minutes. I will show you what it looks like. It's still pretty hot. Some of the edges kind of pulled back a little bit over here and over here, but that's okay, that's not a problem. Obviously I did bake it with the filling. I just took it out before filming again, just because taking out that filling is always a bit of a messy process for me, so that did not need to be on camera, but I promise I baked it with that and it looks perfect. So now we get to move on to our filling, but before we do that, we preheat our ovens again, but this time to 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So once our ovens are preheating again, we are going to mix all the ingredients together that I have over here, starting with our pumpkin puree. So I just used 2 bags of cubed pumpkin, which is 800 grams, and I just cooked that for about 7-8 minutes, and then I pureed it, and that gives you in the end 600 grams of pumpkin puree. So that's what we're going to add, and to that we're going to add our other ingredients, starting with our sugar, which I have over here, and this is 150 grams of brown sugar. So I'm just going to put that in there. I'm just going to give that a quick mix. If you have a whisk, use a whisk. I managed to actually break my whisk, so I'm left with a spoon. So I'm just going to mix this. So to this we're going to add our spices, and over here I have 2 teaspoons of pumpkin spice, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and half a teaspoon of salt that I'm just gonna put in there. Just stir it. This already smells so good. Then we're going to add our eggs. Over here I have 2 eggs and 1 egg yolk, so I'm going to just put that in there. And again, stir it. And lastly, we're going to add evaporated milk. So over here I've got 340 milliliters of coffee milk, and I'm just going to put that in here. All right, this is our mixture. As you can see, it's very wet. But that's okay, that's what it's supposed to look like. First, I'm going to put some egg wash on our crust. Egg wash is basically just an egg with a little bit of water, and I'm just going to put that on my brush and just put it on the edges of my pie. And then we pour our mixture into our pie shell, so I'm going to do that now. All right. I do have some mixture left. It's not a whole lot, but I do have some left. That's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to put some aluminum foil on top just because we don't want our edges to burn. It's called tenting, and I'm going to show you how to do it. You get some aluminum foil. That is roughly the size of your tin. And then you're just going to fold it a couple of times. Fold you again. So then you're going to put this around your pie dish, and then you fold it over the edges. So you don't want it to cover the filling, you just want it to cover most of the crust, because the crust has already been in the oven. It's already quite a nice color for me. Alright, so the edges are nicely covered. If you feel that your crust is still lacking a little bit of color, then you can always take the tin foil off at some point. I would suggest to just at least put it in the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes before taking it off, because if you don't tent it at all, the odds are that your crust will burn entirely. So I'm going to put this pie in the oven for anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. It's a bit hard to estimate because it depends on your oven, how hot it gets. So what I do after 45 minutes is I use a toothpick and I put it in the center. If it comes out clean, it's already done, and I repeat that every 5 minutes until the toothpick comes out clean. We're going to put this in the oven and see what it looks like in about 45 minutes to an hour. So our pie is done. It looks and smells amazing. I let it be in the oven for an hour exactly. As I said, whether or not it should be shorter or maybe a bit longer depends on your oven. Today, an hour was it for me. I'm going to take off the foil. I ended up putting an extra layer of foil underneath it just because I had a removable bottom and I just wanted to avoid any spillage. So I put an extra foil here, but normally you wouldn't have to do that, so don't worry about it. Oh, I'm gonna take this over here. All right, so this is what it looks like. I love the way it looks. There is a hole in the middle, as you can see. That is completely on me. What happened is I used a skewer instead of a toothpick because I couldn't find my toothpicks, and then I created a bigger hole, and that's just completely on me. If you use a toothpick, it's going to be fine. And also, I am not too worried about it just because I think I'll end up putting some whipped cream in the middle, so nobody's going to see it. I will have to wait until the pie cools down, obviously. But yeah, for me, this isn't a big problem. Again, this is not going to happen to you if you just use a toothpick. It's just completely my fault. But it looks amazing otherwise. It smells amazing. I will take it out of the form for a second just so you can see that it actually ended up looking really gorgeous. And this is why I like a removable bottom, just because I can do that. Look at that. Oh, almost dropped it. This pie is so amazing. It looks good. It tastes good. Everybody loves it. Well, right now there's two things I could do. I could just put some whipped cream on top, which obviously makes the whole problem go away because nobody will see the small hole. Or I could just eat a piece and just make sure that the piece with the hole is gone as well. And I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to cut into it. Actually, hold on. I've just taken a knife that I warmed up a little bit to get a bit of a cleaner cut. All right, there you go. It looks absolutely beautiful. So this is what it looks like. It's a nice little pie. It's delicious. It's everything I could ever want. And I'm going to try a bite. Oh my god. The first taste you get is caramel. And then when you taste it more, it tastes like pumpkin. This is really, really good. Okay, well, I'm going to keep eating this forever now. Thank you. It's perfect pumpkin pie. So if you want to make a pumpkin pie, you know how to do it. So if you end up making this delicious pie that tastes like spices and pumpkin and deliciousness, just let me know if you liked it. Let me know what you thought of it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I really enjoy knowing your feedback, and also thank you so much for watching. It means a lot to me, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye. And after I tried many recipes, and I spent some time perfecting my personal recipe, which I just thought I would share with you today. Did you just see the door open? Well, that was a little bandit coming in. Oh, you little bandit. always, oh, are you kidding me? So at this point you want to preheat your oven to 220 degrees Celsius or 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh my god, that was quite hard to say. Still pretty hot. Oh god, I don't want it to slide off.